At number 9, it's the captaincy issue. Now, every team needs a leader, someone who can unite the mavericks, the bum-fluff-lipped apprentices, the cheeky chappies and the up-and-down bipolars. Someone who can play the role of mediator, motivator and rotivator, if one were to use an allotment as a metaphor for a group of players. A man who can take the role of father, brother, uncle, possibly first cousin, pastor if need be, God forbid. A player who's willing to sit in the centre circle at the end of a game and shed a tear for his pals. Let's make no bones about it. We had a captaincy issue at Arsenal, which had gone on long enough and badly needed sorting out. Finally, little Cesc took over from Big Willie and everything was hunky-dory. Well, that is until Cesc got injured a couple of weeks later and was out for most of the season. But it was just one of those bloody years, wasn't it?
Gallas joined Arsenal. William Gallas joined Arsenal, and of course, it was a bit of a cross goodbye. Cashley, I don't know, you'll probably edit that out. I don't know. Cashley, Ashley, see you later. Hello, William, and he was loved because he left Chelsea, didn't like Chelsea, fell out with Marinello, and he's coming to the Arsenal. Great. Started off playing well, everything's good, he's made captain. And then there's the infamous game, I suppose you call it, at Birmingham.
Clearly at Birmingham he showed he wasn't a good captain. That was a terrible sort of example of leadership, or a perfect example of bad leadership.
At the time, I was very sympathetic towards Gallas because to be a group of plumbers or musicians or filmmakers, there's got to be team spirit and bonding, and you travel up and down and you train together. It is that term, band of brothers. You are. So when you see one of those guys, one of your brothers, writhing about on the floor and his legs back to front and the way it should be, and his bones sticking out, doesn't matter who you are, that is gonna affect you.
It was ludicrous that he'd retained the captaincy after the Birmingham game. I've never seen a footballer do anything like that, really, let alone a captain. To march up the other end of the field and sulk.
And it turned a lot of people. Because they're like, all right, yes, there is emotions involved, but he's the captain of the Arsenal Football Club. He's the captain. And when that's the reason he's captain, because when incidents, hopefully not like that, but when there are incidents akin to that, you're captain because you have to stand strong. And the people who might be falling must look at you for example of leadership. So when your captain trudges off goes off the field and sits down, and anything could have happened with that penalty, there was a big camp of people at Arsenal going, don't like that.
We always want it to be one bloke's fault. That is us. There is not a football supporter, there has never been a football supporter born who watched the team lose and didn't want to be able to say it was his fault. Because you can handle that.
I think it was a controversial decision to give him the captaincy in the first place. He was an outspoken character. I think when he first arrived at Arsenal, everyone I sort of spoke to said, oh, he's been great, he's nothing like what he was at Chelsea. I think he was perceived at Chelsea as a bit of a troublemaker and a bit of a, a bit of a bad influence in the dressing room, and people saying, oh, that's so wrong, he's not like that at all. Well, actually this season, I'm afraid to say, he was exposed again as having a very volatile temper.
But he was put in that situation. Yes, he accepted to do it, and he could have turned around and said, I don't want to be the captain, but who's going to do that? And
then the book comes out, revealing loads of stuff about who doesn't like who within the first team. Stuff that goes on in the dressing room. It's like a CCTV camera in your family home. We know everyone argues. If there's a group of people, at some point there's going to be an argument or disagreement, at least. We know that. But what we don't want is it displayed when it's the Arsenal or any club, especially when things aren't going well. The last thing you want is the captain to release a book saying, well, he doesn't like him and I don't like him and he said this to me and that's disrespectful. And what about when this happened? It's like, William, no, mate, come on, please,
Some of the French lads really sort of rounded by him and sort of stuck with him. I was in a sort of a press conference with Bakary Sagna, and he was sort of saying, well, what was wrong with what Gallas said? Well, sorry, but actually I think a few people have had a pop, and I can remember talking to Emmanuel Almunia after a game, and he was really outspoken in some of his criticisms. And I think people were saying, well, Almunia said the same thing, but you know, it wasn't painted up in the press as in the same way as Gallas perhaps. But I think Gallas just went that extra, you know, yard and sort of, you know, dropped little hints about, you know, fights and bust-ups, and was really destructive in his comments.
There was some stuff about, you know, we've got to be men, the Arsenal team. Yes, but when you'd walked off the pitch at Birmingham, it's you're not, you know, it's like, well, that was all right because I understand why I did it, but all these other things are wrong, you know. And obviously it caused uproar amongst the fans and within the club. But
it's a terribly difficult thing to strip somebody of the captaincy. You've got to analyse what it's going to do to their self-esteem, if it's going to affect their game, what kind of impact it's going to have on the rest of the squad. I can understand why Arsene resisted for a little while longer and didn't do it until in a way he just had to.
You can do it without rancour. You just say, look, William, you're not a captain, and temperamentally you're unsuited to it.
You know, when the other fella went down to Chelsea, I thought we'd got Chelsea's best centre-half off him. And to be honest, I think we didn't really notice just what a fantastic centre-half William Gallas is until we lost twice to Man United in the Champions League semi-final.
I admired William Gallas. I have to say that at the time that it all blew up, it was horrible reading. It was again exaggerated a little bit. It was a little bit blown out of proportion. I admired him for the way that he came back into the side and was an incredibly professional lad, and was hugely important to that 21-game run, the start of that, and going out and proving people wrong and climbing back over the top of Aston Villa. William Gallas played an amazing part in that, only to sustain an injury that kept him out at what you'd call the crucial part of the season.
Being a captain is a responsibility, and I'm not sure that it was a responsibility that William Gallas was comfortable with. I think what he's comfortable with is being one of the best centre-halves in the Premier League, and maybe in hindsight it would have been best to leave him to go on with that. There wasn't an obvious captain around the place because we let the two that were go last summer.
Well, can I just say, I think since Tony Adams left, I don't think, you know, Henry wasn't a captain figure really. He was far too concerned with his own performance. He's a diva, you know.
Genius.
But I don't honestly know how much. Well, I do when I see Frank McClintock and Tony Adams. Then I know what a captain does.
The players need a leader on the pitch, the same as off the pitch. The manager's the leader off the pitch. On the pitch, you've got the captain there. And you've got to have a lot of experienced players there as well, not just youngsters. I think you've got to have like 4 or 5 players, 27, 28 years of age, who's actually been there, done it, and come to an important time of the season, which I think happened last season. 10 games to go, Arsenal were looking as if we were going to win the league, and then it was sort of collapsed. That's sometimes when young players are looking for the senior players to give them a bit of advice or to help them out in situations.
I think Cesc is the guy, and okay, you lead in different ways. Cesc is not a Tony Adams in your face. He's not a Patrick Vieira who's likely to go into a tunnel and confront one of the opposition before the game. And we know what happened there in the Man United Roy Keane situation. But Bobby Moore won the World Cup for England. Franz Beckenbauer won the World Cup for Germany. Cesc Fabregas has been in a side that's the best side in Europe, in Spain winning the European Championship. And he plays, and it's really just taking one look at that captain, the leadership he has, the footballing brain he has, and he leads by example. So there are different ways of being a captain as well.